this is a huge story. Ecuador is in the process of giving Assange up after 8 years. This guy has been in solitary confinement, basically in a room, over the last, I believe, 8+ months. He's been without internet access. And this could
Yeah, eight
end.
years detained in the Ecuadorian embassy, not being able to go outside, with the British authorities spending millions and millions of pounds on security for just Julian Assange, having police officers and undercover agents wait outside of the Ecuadorian embassy now for 8 years. The security costs of that have been staggering. And this is, Jason, this is all over. The major charge that they have him on is a minor bail violation, which at most would get someone in the UK for 3 months. That is the only official charge that they have against this man, Julian Assange.
Yeah, and let's not forget when they were first trying to vilify him and make him into a arch demon criminal, they talked about a date rape charge where he took home a woman, she willingly had sex with him, and then like in the morning or the middle of the night he tried to slip it in again or something, and she didn't consent to that, and then all of a sudden, and by the way, most of that's been proven false. They said that's why they wanted them. They've tried to say this wasn't political for the longest times. Now, we'll get to the Carter Page story much later, but WikiLeaks again and again is referenced in that document, in all of these documents, colluding with Russia. Well, we know that the Guccifer 2.0 hacker used a Russian VPN on purpose, Luke. Do you think that means he's Russian, or do you think that means he's actually masking his identity and trying to be caught as a quote-unquote Russian? I mean, that indictment that we've seen of those 12 Russians is paper thin, especially when it comes to Guccifer. But the point here is that we have Pence coming in, talking with them. He's probably going to be extradited to the United States, and this is the end of free speech. This trial will end free speech forever. Go ahead.
People have to understand, this is not an issue about Julian Assange, which he isn't a perfect human being. He made some mistakes and errors throughout his career, especially throughout WikiLeaks. He's not a perfect human being. But this is not about Julian Assange. This is about the First Amendment. Because if they're going to go after Julian Assange, they should go after The Guardian, the New York Times, that also publicized a lot of the documents and talked about a lot of the documents that were classified, that Julian Assange and WikiLeaks was able to get out there to the general public. Overall, I think he did a very big public service, and I think it's important to understand how exactly everything is happening here, because a lot of this started when Julian Assange criticized the Spanish government when they were going against their independence movement in Barcelona, in Catalan. And Julian Assange was threatened by Ecuador, saying, stop talking about these Catalan Barcelona independence protests that want to be separated from the Spanish government. Julian Assange said, nope, I won't do that. And because of that, because of the Spanish government pressuring the Ecuadorian government, they cut off his internet. And he's been without the internet for a very long time, just sitting in a room, ultimately being able to see his lawyers sometimes, but it's pretty much just him being in jail. And I think they did this on purpose to cut off his popularity, cut off him from making any significant moves, since, as we've seen, Julian Assange threatened many times releasing keys that could be put together later on, like a safe, what do they call it, Jason? Like a safe, vault safe, in order to protect. A fail safe in order to protect himself. He made very generalized statements saying he has more information, that if anything happens to him, use these keys to release the information later on. So without a doubt, the British authorities, according to many sources and many news publications, are going to apprehend him, and most likely, and I think it's almost pretty sure that he's going to be extradited to the United States. That battle within itself, that extradition, could take a year to 3 years. So most likely he's going to end up in solitary confinement in jail during the extradition process, which of course he's going to fight. But as we know, Trump said before he loves WikiLeaks. Many WikiLeaks supporters like Kim.com have even come out publicly and said Trump wouldn't be president if it wasn't for people like Julian Assange, like WikiLeaks. Trump endorsed him, said he loved him. But Trump officials are calling for him to be prosecuted and thrown in jail. Mike Pompeo, the former CIA head and now Secretary of State under Donald Trump, called WikiLeaks a non-state hostile intelligence organization. So we have to understand what most likely is going to happen here. He's going to get out of the Ecuadorian embassy by force by the British authorities sometime this week or next week, since the Ecuadorian president is within the United Kingdom. And he's going to Spain right afterwards, very symbolically. And he's most likely going to be arrested there and then face an extradition trial to the United States because of a secret sealed indictment that the United States has against him. Because again, and I don't see Donald Trump coming out and helping him, even though he said he loved WikiLeaks, mainly because all of the officials that he surrounded himself with hate and despise WikiLeaks. But there is a double standard that I wanted to bring up to everyone and to bring up to you before I let you have the last word on this very important issue. Here, I sent the article in the chat room so people could read it for themselves. And this is an article by The Intercept that is covering this specific story, that is covering the movements of the Ecuadorian president who is in the United Kingdom. And the article reads, indeed, it is technically a crime under U.S. law for anyone, including a media outlet, to publish certain types of classified information. Under U.S. law, for instance, it was a felony for the Washington Post, David Ignatius, to report on the contents of telephone calls intercepted by the NSA between then National Security Advisor nominee Michael Flynn and Russian Ambassador Sergei Kazyak. Even though such reporting was clearly in the public interest, since it proved Flynn lied when he denied such contacts, but the Department of Justice never went after the Washington Post, never went after the people who work in their benefit, but the people who actually expose the information that counters their narrative, that counters people's trust in the government. They're going full on heavy-handed, and if they go after Assange and they get him, the implications for the First Amendment are very severe. Jason?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're talking globally here, Luke. We're not just talking about the United States of America. This sets a extremely bad precedent. But another one of these hawks that Trump has surrounded himself with is John Bolton. And John Bolton wants people like Edward Snowden to swing from a tree. And he is very anti-WikiLeaks. But you're right, we had a president who says, I love the WikiLeaks coming out. I know that WikiLeaks themselves pumped out a video, or someone did of them. It's like 2.5 minutes of Trump talking about how much WikiLeaks helped him during the election. And you know what? You want me to ride that Trump train, folks? You want me to get on the saddle and ride away? This is what we do. Trump says, hey, you know what? We're going to let you off the hook. We're actually going to give you asylum here, okay? And we're going to do so when you release all this documentation you have on the government that's dirty. That would get me on the Trump train. That would be a man of the people. Don't you agree, Luke?
And it's not going to happen, and I don't see it happening in the foreseeable future, because all it takes is simply not trying to extradite him, which everyone, of course, fears will happen. Obviously, it's not really a spoken thing by U.S. representatives. But again, remember, this is not an issue just about Julian Assange. This is a matter of journalism and the future of journalism, because if they could bring Julian Assange to trial because of this, they could do it to every journalist in the future that releases or talks about classified information that the government does not want them, the people, to know. And of course, with the long history of American journalism, muckraking, whistleblowing journalism that happened, this is a key integral part of the fourth estate of the government, the fourth branch of government, having a free media, which we don't. We have a corporate government one. But regardless of that fact, this is still a very dangerous president that hopefully, it's I can't even say hopefully, because it's looking like he's going to be forced out of there very soon.
Hey everybody, that was a segment from our Sunday live stream that streams afternoon, evening time, depending on where you are in the world. And we offer that in podcast format on iTunes the very next day. And I want to remind everybody that we are also a truly independent news organization. So go check out the t-shirt shop, grab yourself something extremely cool to wear, and help support WeAreChange in the process. Thank you all, and we'll see you soon.